So saving your presentation, very, very important. We're used to always having to save regularly things that we're working on so that if for any reason the computer crashed or there was a problem, then what we were working on was not lost and hours of work was not lost. Actually, recent versions of Microsoft Office have now a feature where they actually regularly auto backup what you're working on. So the worst thing that happens if the computer crashes, you normally only ever lose about 10 minutes worth of work. Let's have a look where that's set. So if I go into File, and we're going backstage now, and click on Options, and then you'll see that one of these options here is Save. And what I can do is I can then say how to auto recover this information every 10 minutes. That means every 10 minutes what will happen is it will just do a save. And that's generally good time to have, 10 minutes. Also, if you want to ever know where that location is of where those files are stored, it is here in this location here. Another thing that might be of interest is, when you actually are saving, what is the default you want it to be done? You might want to save it as default in earlier version of Microsoft PowerPoint. This is only really applicable if you are working in a shared office and people have earlier versions of PowerPoint. Be aware if you do set it to this that a number of features that come with the later versions of PowerPoint will suddenly not be enabled, and so you may have some gaps in your presentation. So we're just going to leave it at back. So that's where we set the auto recover information and where we find out where those files are stored. If for any reason that PowerPoint did crash, all I'd actually need to do is reopen PowerPoint and it would find those files and it would offer them to me and say to me, did I want to recover them? So I can also file save as. You might be more familiar with this. File save as, and then I can save it as my family. It's given a suggestion of a name. Notice it's a .pptx. That's the latest versions of PowerPoint are a pptx. You might be familiar with the .ppt, and those are 2003 and earlier versions. I can click on here and there's a whole host of different options available. Some might be familiar, for example PDFs. Some might not be. Let's just cancel that. Because backstage, they actually have this save and send option, and this is a much more graphical friendly way of saving. We have a couple of columns here. So, for example, if I choose the send using email, then the second column here is context sensitive to that. So if I'm sending using an email, I've got the ability to send it as an attachment, an email link, send it as a PDF, an XPS file, or as an internet fax, providing I've got a fax service provider set up. I've got the ability to save it to the web. And so, for example, if I have a Windows Live account, I could save it online against my Windows Live ID. If I have SharePoint set up, I can save it there. And there are a number of other different options, but this change file type here is the same list we saw previously when we press File Save As, but a much more focused group. These are probably the most common that would be of use for yourself. You've got the standard format, and you have the early versions that I talked about, the .ppt, for people who are not using Microsoft Office 2007 and above. You can save it as a template. We'll talk about templates later on, but it might be the ability to then have this as a standard template and you'll use that moving forward. You can save it as a PowerPoint show. This is very useful if you don't know if PowerPoint is going to be installed on the machine that you're doing the presentation as. This is a self-contained file that doesn't require any existing software to be on your machine. And then also you might want to save it as a series of pictures. Further to that, you can also save them in a different file, each slide as different images, as a .png or a .jpg. So there are a number of different ways to save your presentation. We'll talk about some of these other options in some of the later videos. But there we go. To save your presentation, remember to save it regularly. But if you don't, and for any reason something causes a computer to shut down, all is not lost and it will automatically be recovered.